For 17 years, Tammy and Yvonne Coulter have been forced to live apart, even though they're mother and daughter. They were separated and Tammy was put up for adoption because she'd suffered a bruised cheek, an injury that social workers accepted was an accident. Well, now the couple are campaigning for the law to be changed. 5's Jason Farrell has their amazing story.
I was taken from my mother nearly 17 years ago on a false allegation. I was happily playing in a baby bouncing chair where I leant forward because I dropped one of my toys, and the chair collapsed and it swung round and hit me on the cheek and I sustained a bruise.
2 days later from the incident, a social worker came to my door and said they'd had an anonymous call, and from there on it was a long battle with the family courts.
Yvonne fought a 2-year legal battle to try to get her daughter back, during which time she had a second child.
A male social worker came in the labour suite while I was lay on the actual bed and tried to hand me papers, a place and safety order.
Yvonne was eventually allowed to keep her son Cameron, but her daughter Tammy was put up for adoption. As she grew up, Tammy was always curious about her birth parents. In January this year, aged 17, she tracked down her mother through the internet.
I don't know,
it was so
great.
Emotional.
Yeah.
We didn't speak, we just flung his arms around each other and cried.
Tammy moved in with her mother this summer, and after just a few months of knowing each other, they seemed settled and extremely close. And now they're even campaigning together for greater transparency in the family courts.
The family courts should be opened, and the medical evidence should definitely be based on fact more than probabilities. And if the family courts were opened, it would help children who are being abused as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It works both ways.
In a statement regarding Tammy's case, Derbyshire County Council said the decisions in this case were made by the courts. They were based on assessments by the County Council and the guardian appointed by the courts to look after the child's interests. We're confident that our assessment was an accurate reflection of the facts. They also welcome a more transparent system, and so does the government.
You can't actually dispel people's fears by everybody inside the system saying, don't worry, everything we're doing is fine. You have to have some measure of openness and accountability, and that's what we're going to try and do.
I think there are many other children and parents going through the same thing as what I did, and in 5 or 10 years' time they will be feeling the same way as I do, only I am the first young adopted adult to have a voice and say how I've been feeling.
That was Jason Farrell reporting there. He met Yvonne and Tammy after they contacted 5 News to give us their story and tell us about their campaign. We want your stories too, so do get in touch. Jason's email address is there.
Well, social services in the UK have come under fire for forcibly taking children from their parents for seemingly minor reasons. Care workers insist they are always putting the best interests of the children first, but families say they're needlessly broken up, and critics claim the system is all wrong. RT's Laura Emmett investigates.
A woman jailed for waving to her children across the street. A mother in court over sending her 8-year-old son a birthday card. They may sound like surreal soundbites from a totalitarian state, but actually they're headlines from the UK. Christopher Booker is an investigative journalist who's looked into what he calls forced adoption.
I had a case the other day where a mother was about to deliver her child in a hospital, and 5 policemen and 2 social workers came into the delivery room to seize that child. 5 policemen with a mother who is helpless lying there giving birth to her baby. I mean, you can't believe such things are happening.
This family is now a happy one, but it was once torn apart, and anger remains at the actions of social services. Little Constancia's elder sister was taken into state care aged just 4 months, and social workers wanted to take Constancia too at birth.
I did think my daughter would come back to us after a time, but she ended up being put up for adoption about 3 years ago. My daughter was about to come back to us when a psychologist came forward and diagnosed us as paranoid, depressed, and he used a term remote. And on the basis of that, it was harder to get my daughter back.
Although that diagnosis was refuted by other doctors, it took John Fowler 5 years to get his daughter back. She was taken on evidence from his 11-year-old stepson, who accused John and his wife of hitting their children, something they deny.
I wouldn't say I was a brilliant stepfather. There was problems in the house, but I didn't think it merited taking my daughter into care, you know, and putting them into care themselves. I think the problems could have been addressed in a better way.
There are around 60,000 children in care in the UK, 0.5% of the total child population. Christopher Booker says there are hundreds, possibly thousands of cases a year in which children are wrongly taken, and he's suspicious about the motives.
There is a very considerable amount of money to be made if you're an adoptive parent. You take in one of these children, or you're a foster carer, you can get £400 a week for each child, which is, if you have 2 or 3 adopted children, it's a hell of a lot of money. So the whole thing has become a very nasty, inhuman racket.
At the other end of the spectrum, there are shocking stories of abuse and neglect, such as the infamous baby P scandal. In that case, social workers failed to remove a toddler from his parents, who ultimately tortured him to death. Social workers say it's a fine balance and that the goal is to keep families together wherever possible.
It's going to be a debate that goes on and on and on. Either we're too accommodating of parents who have obviously difficulties in caring for their children, or we're overzealous and we're just taking these children and really swiftly and promptly and just placing them for adoption, and those are two extremes.
It's a process that's shrouded in secrecy by the law, and social services refuse to discuss individual cases. But they do say that once a child is in care, the priority is to have them adopted as soon as possible. That emphasis led to John Fowler's daughter being advertised in a local newspaper like these, a practice that's become commonplace. John Fowler's story has a happy ending. He got his elder daughter back, although she's still under surveillance by the social services, and fought to keep baby Constancia. For some children, being adopted represents a chance for a better life. But there are other families who claim they're torn apart by the social services without good reason, and they say it's a life-changing injustice. Laura Emmett, RT, London.